We are on chapter 8, the lumber room. We have finished the first and second part of the chapter, and today we shall discuss the third part of the chapter on page number 107. Nicholas felt perfectly capable of being in disgrace and in a gooseberry garden at the same moment. His face took on an expression of considerable obstinacy. It was clear to his aunt that he was determined to get into the gooseberry garden. Only as she marked to herself, because I have told him he is not to. Okay, so obstinacy means stubbornness, and determined, the meaning of determined is having made of strong decision. Okay, so what is in this paragraph? Nicholas knew how to get into the gooseberry garden. Being in disgrace, he was a stubborn child also. What he decided, he does it. That was he determined to get into the gooseberry garden. So the aunt knows that he will not go to the gooseberry garden, but anyway he will get into the gooseberry garden if aunt disappear from there. So he planned to get into the gooseberry garden. So the next paragraph is, now the gooseberry garden had 2 doors by which it might be entered. So the gooseberry garden had 2 doors, and once a small person like Nicholas could slip in there, he could disappear from view amid the masking growth of artichokes, raspberry canes and fruit bushes. So like a Nicholas, like a small person, could easily get into the gooseberry garden, and we see in this paragraph that the gooseberry garden had how many doors? 2 doors. Okay, 2 gates. One was a small person like Nicholas could easily get inside the garden and hide behind the bushes of trees. There are so many fruit trees are there, okay, strawberries, and so what he did, the aunt had made other things to do that afternoon. He had so many other things to do that afternoon, but she spent an hour or 2 in trivial gardening operations among flowers, buds and strawberries. Whence she could keep a watchful eye on the 2 doors that led to the forbidden paradise. She was a woman of few ideas with immense powers of concentration. So what is here tells that anyway Nicholas determined to get into the gooseberry garden, and was also a very strong person that she decided that she will stay there and watch whether Nicholas could get into the gooseberry garden. Now the Nicholas understood that he could not get into the garden. Why he could not get into the garden? Because the aunt was watching each and everything. So he left the interest in getting inside the garden. He instead thought that he should make his aunt believe that he wants to get inside the garden. In this way, she will be staying in the garden where the whole afternoon, and he will get good time to do something inside the house. So what he wanted to do? He wanted to make aunt know that he is waiting to get inside the gooseberry garden, and our aunt also would waste her whole time. That is what he wanted to do. So because the aunt spent the whole afternoon, the precious time which she had, she spent the whole afternoon in watching over the watching the garden, and whether the Nicholas could get inside or not. So she wasted the whole afternoon on that day. And also Nicholas wanted that the same thing. She should waste the time. And when Aunt was watching the garden, what Nicholas did, and he could do, he will get a good time to do something inside the house. So he wanted to do something instead of getting inside the garden, gooseberry garden, he wanted to do something inside the house. So Nicholas made 1 or 2 trips into the front garden, wriggling his way towards one or other of the doors, but never able for a moment or evade the aunt's watchful eyes. As a matter of fact, he had no intention of trying to get inside the gooseberry garden, but it was extremely convenient for him that his aunt should believe that he had. It was a belief that would keep her and self-centered duty for the greater part of that afternoon. Having thoroughly confirmed and fortified her suspicions, Nicholas slipped back inside the house and rapidly put into execution a plan of action that had long germinated in his brain. So what Nicholas did here? He wanted to go to the gooseberry garden, but aunt didn't allow. So what he changed his plan, and he wanted to do something inside the house. Rapidly means fast, and execution means performance. Germinated means grows. So something else he planned to do inside the house. By standing on a chair in the library, one could reach a shelf on which lay a fat, important-looking key. The key was unimportant as it looked. It was the instrument which kept the mysteries of the lumber room secure, which opened a way only for ants and such like privileged persons. The key turned stiffly in the lock, but it turned. The door opened and Nicholas was in an unknown land, compared with which the gooseberry garden was a stale delight. So what did Nicholas do? So once Nicholas understood that aunt was quite sure that he is trying to get inside the gooseberry garden, and he was quite sure that he is determined to get into the gooseberry garden, he slipped inside the house because he had some other plans going in his mind. So what is the plan what was going in his mind? He had some other plan inside the house, to get into inside the house. So any child would stand on a chair and reach to the shelves where the attractive key was kept. There was a key kept, and every child should attract where an attractive key was kept. An attractive key was kept on the shelves, and he also wanted to take that key, but he was a little scared of ant. Now he took the key and went to the mysterious lumber room. It was the key of the lumber room. You remember the lumber room? What is the meaning of lumber room? It is the storeroom where the unwanted things are kept. He opened it and get into the room. He was in a mysterious land. He got the key from the shelves and opened the door and got inside the room. And it was a mysterious place, mysterious land. He found it was a better place than the gooseberry garden. So he found that this is the better place than the gooseberry garden. So what was here? Often and often Nicholas had pictured to himself what a lumber room might be like. That region that was so carefully sealed from youthful eyes and concerning with no questions, where ever answered. Okay. So Nicholas sat for a few minutes there. Okay. He was very curious to find out what was there in that lumber room. So he was very curious to find out what was in the lumber room. Anyway, he got the key where no children were allowed to go. So nobody was supposed to go in that room. The key was kept away from them and no children were allowed to go to that particular room. And no one was answered their questions. And no children also tried to ask any questions concerning about that lumber room. Okay, that's all dear students today. We will be going through the chapter, the paragraph, what I have taught you today, reading the chapter, understanding it thoroughly and finding out the word meanings and writing it in your copy. Okay students, thank you for listening.